John Laura Jones, inviting you to join us on Talk What You Know, Hard Talk, the new edition, where you become the expert. The barber, the beautician, the beauty shop, those are the people we're going to talk to, the grassroots people, the people in the community who really knows what's going on. You know, the street knows what's happening before anybody else. So we encourage you to join us each and every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Talk What You Know, Hard Talk, on NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com, where you become the expert, where we explore politics, business, ecclesiastical issues, and everything that impacts you on a daily basis. We encourage you to join us every Wednesday at 11 a.m., where we bring you exciting people from the community, talking what you know, hard talk, no holds barred, where you become the expert.
Here at Jones Insurance, your full-service agency, let us take care of all your insurance needs. We provide homeowners insurance, flood, rental, commercial, auto, and life insurance. Don't let the unexpected tragedy destroy your family's future. Here at Jones Insurance, 7603 West Bank Expressway, Monroe, Louisiana, 772. Contact Lois at 504-348-1492.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Joe Lapinto, and you are watching the New Orleans Talk Network.
During times of family stress, if you need a church to hold your funeral services or a hall to hold your repast, you can contact us at Bethesda Community Event Center at 504-348-0132. We can accommodate all your repast and funeral needs, from a preacher to perform the services, to an organist that plays the music, the ability to stream it live for those who can't make it, and more. During your time of need, all of your arrangements can be made under one roof here at Bethesda Community Event Center. We're here to serve you. Give us a call when you're in need at 504-348-0132. Give your loved one a great homegoing event. Come second line at our center.
This is Congressman Cedric Richmond, and you're watching the New Orleans Talk Network.
Step Construction is here for you with a brand new offer. We now provide affordable storage sheds. Stop wasting your money on overpriced storage units and portable containers. Step Construction can provide you with a custom shed that will fit your budget and storage needs. So contact Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 for your own personal quote. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
Are you looking for a hall to live stream your next event? Give us a call here at Bethesda Community Event Center, the only place on a golf course that can host and broadcast live your wedding reception, your baby shower, business seminar, and any other special event. Give us a call at 504-708-9454 for more details.
It's your girl Spice Divas, the marketing diva, the host of Red Lip Talk podcast. Check me out every Monday at 1 p.m. on New Orleans Talk Network. Where do I begin? We have so many amazing guests, from politicians, gospel artists, barbers, beauticians, entrepreneurs, and so much more. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, definitely tune in so you can see what we're doing every Monday at 1 p.m. on New Orleans Talk Network. Mwah!
Still dealing with hurricane damage on your roof or damages to your home in general? Call Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 or visit stepconstruction.com. Step Construction is fully licensed and fully insured. We tell the insurance companies what they owe you. For a peace of mind, protect your most valuable asset. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
Got to pay back. Revenge. I'm mad. The big payback. Got to get back. I need some get back.
Welcome. Welcome to Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition, right here in the New Orleans Talk Network studios, live here in the New Orleans metropolitan area. Tonight we're going to deal with black capitalism or black nationalism, or what does those things mean and how have they impacted us? That's what our theme is going to be centered around today. And just asking this question, what's the difference? Before we get started, you know we always like to tell you this. In America, it's the land of the milk and honey, as long as you got a kind. Don't ever forget that. And always remember, you get what you negotiate, you eat what you kill. And when you swim in shark-infested waters, you better learn how to swim with the sharks without being eaten. That's the reality of the world and the country we live in every day. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand the rules of the game. You understand what's going on. Sometimes you got to go back in the time when the only people who existed were troglodytes. Had to get that one in. But we're going to go back and look at the 1960s and 70s and just get an idea of where we're at and what did we buy into? What did we buy into? Malcolm X's black nationalism or Richard Nixon's black capitalism? That's the key. And could we have done both? You know, one said that they would provide us grants and front stores, and the other demanded land and control and sovereignty in your own community. So how did we choose and why did we choose? And did we choose a decoy over reality? And the question for you and I, was it about power or permission? And which one did we choose? And to fully understand it, we have to understand that dynamic things were happening. People were on the street, people were demanding certain things, and leadership mattered because we're in a transition period. We're sort of coming out of the civil rights movement, and our leaders started redefining that movement, started looking at it in a different way, started looking at it from an economic perspective. How does economic impact the things that are impacting the community? And I just want to show you something, because a lot of times people don't understand that black capitalism was Nixon's strategy for taking people off of the street. I'll say it again. Black capitalism was Nixon's strategy. It was a government-endorsed plan to take the activists off the street by giving you permission to participate in the American capitalistic structure. Nixon promoted blacks being entrepreneurs, becoming homeowners, and participating in the American dream. All those things is what he said would happen if blacks just came off the street and invested in the American capitalistic system. It's supposed to make a dynamic change. At the same time, he had Malcolm X talking about black nationalism, self-determination, community control, cultural pride, and separate economic development. So the question for you and I, what did we buy into? And can two things be right at the same time? As you look at that time period and you analyze it, and we all have studied it, we either lived it or studied it in school, and we ask ourselves, how did we get where we are today and what decisions were made to allow that to happen. And when we look at the two dominant leaders at that time, they were sort of shifting their disposition. And these two dominant leaders, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, were more closely related, more closely tied, were moving in the same direction, parallel directions, because they realized that although civil rights was important, economic rights were just as important. So we want to look at the two different juxtapositions. And Mike, play that clip on that first clip on Dr. King from 1968 on The Tonight Show at Harry Belafonte. And you're going to see, it's amazing to me as we analyze history and we study it, we don't usually attribute Dr. King to dealing with economics. But Dr. King clearly realized and started to address the economic perils that were impacting our community. And the question for you and me is, did we buy a slogan or substance during that time? So we're gonna look at this first clip from Dr. King. Now remember, this is 1967. In all places on The Tonight Show, Harry Belafonte was the guest host, and he had Dr. King on. So let's look at this quote from Dr. King right quick.
It's time to get into pleasantries and to talk about the many experiences I've had with you, not only here, but in Europe and other places. What do you have in store for us this summer?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know about the summer. I guess I should begin with what we have in store for the spring. I feel that we are in the midst of a most critical period in our nation, and the economic problem is probably the most serious problem confronting the Negro community. And I might say the most serious problem confronting poor people generally. And I don't want to be narrow about this, talking only about the black poor in our country, because I must be concerned about Puerto Ricans who are poor, Mexican Americans, American Indians, and Appalachian whites. And we are confronting a major depression in the poor community. And I think the time has come to bring to bear the power of the direct action, the nonviolent direct action movement on the basic economic conditions that we face all over the country. Nonviolence has been a tremendous force in grappling with the social problem of legal segregation and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding that system. And of course it has been a major force in grappling with the political problem of the denial of the right to vote. But in winning victories like the Civil Rights Bill of '64 and the Voting Rights Bill of 1965 around the issue of segregation and voting rights, we discovered that...
Now, if you watch and you pay close attention, Dr. King in 1967 is no longer 100% focusing his efforts on civil rights and voting. He's now shifted his disposition on economics. As a matter of fact, he says we're at a critical economic period. So that's telling you that something has happened. There's been a mindset change. Something is going on and something is prompting it. And what I think underlines where he's going to address, he's attempting to address where the country is heading, where we are and what we're doing. And that's why President Nixon's black capitalism is so important, because what President Nixon does is that he institutes and conceives this concept of black capitalism. That's designed to bring everything down to a lower level. He incorporates that into his Southern strategy. This is how he's going to win the election, through this Southern strategy, by getting the Dixiecrats to vote for him, by committing to them that he's going to be the law and order president. He's going to take the activity off the street, and for taking the activity off the street, he's going to guarantee certain things. He's going to guarantee business opportunities. He's going to guarantee housing. He's going to guarantee access to free markets. And so that's what he commits to. And so the question for you and I is, did we fall for the okie dokie? And did you really get that? And oftentimes we don't like to look at history. But unless we look at history, we can't figure out why we are where we are. And oftentimes it's the history that people don't want you to know. So Richard Nixon comes up with this concept. And I want to just show you a couple of things that Nixon said. And he was pretty, we were talking the other night, and I told people, and I got some booze and some checklers about it. I said to them that President Barack Obama was a miracle, because nobody ever thought that Barack Hussein Obama would become elected as president of the United States. And then I told them that President Trump was a miracle, because nobody ever thought that he would become president of the United States. And so everybody chuckled, and when I explained to them that you have 45% of the people in this country that thinks that Barack Obama walks on water, and you have 45% of the people in this country that thinks that President Trump walks on water. So you have 10% that doesn't idolize either one. Now, when Richard Nixon was coming to the presidency, nobody thought he was going to win. So he had to come up with a protocol, and Nixon took the position that he was going to take people off the street. He was going to get the black leaders to invest in black capitalism. Now, the irony of that, and we got to look at this while we're setting this all up. In 1964, Malcolm X laid out a plan. And that if we would have bought into that plan, in 64, we may not be where we are today. And I want you to see the difference between, and we're going to look at it, Malcolm X's black nationalism, Richard Nixon's black capitalism, and the conversion of our leadership to dealing with economics. When we come back, we're going to look at a short clip of Malcolm talking, and we're going to look at a couple of short clips of former President Richard Nixon talking. And that's going to set the paradigm for us to see the dynamic shift that happened between 64 and 69 that even resonates today. Be right back on Talk What You Know.
Now New Orleans has a choice. Download the New Orleans Talk Network app for your mobile device, or listen at www.neworleanstalknetwork.com.
Are you looking for a hall to live stream your next event? Give us a call here at Bethesda Community Event Center, the only place on a Gulf Coast that can host and broadcast live your wedding reception, your baby shower, business seminar, and any other special event. Give us a call at 504-708-8255 9454 for more details.
Bethesda House of Prayer. Bethesda is a church for non-traditional worshipers, a church designed for those who love God's Word. Would you like to attend a church where believers and non-believers can choose to worship together? A church where cultural differences does not get in the way of God's message. We invite you to be our special guest. Our services begin 9 a.m. on Sunday, located at 7601 West Bank Expressway, Suite B, Marrero, Louisiana. For more information, contact us at 504-348-0132.
To Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition, right here in the New Orleans Talk Network studios. We're live here today. You know, on Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition, we deal with facts. We deal with history, and we compare it to contemporary times. And we consistently deal with this black cow, this $2.2 trillion. We don't need to roll yet. The $2.2 trillion that's in our economy that blacks produce. And where does that $2.2 trillion go, and what is the consequence of it? Let me just give you an example of something so you can understand what we're talking about before we show this clip on Malcolm, because I want you to see that Malcolm sort of set the paradigm. Malcolm sort of set the plan out, and you couldn't have laid it out better than this. Now, it took the other civil rights leaders maybe about 5-6 years to get there, but Malcolm set it out. And he laid it out, and he explained it in such a way that a kindergartner could have understood it. But let me show it in let me give you an example that happened just this week to illustrate what Malcolm was talking about. I had a nephew that asked me to use my lawnmower, and I'm very particular about people using my things because when I want it, I want it. Where is that? I want to be able to get it. I don't have to go call anybody. I don't have to look for it. I just want it to be where it's at when I'm looking for it. So I decided, I said, you know what, since he's trying to do some entrepreneur stuff, I went to a used lawnmower place, a place where I've gone to for the last 20 years. As a matter of fact, this Vietnamese lawnmower shop was across from an office building that we used to own. I go to the shop. I'm looking at the lawnmowers, and you know, you got these little clips on them, and you can take pictures of them, and they can tell you, one of my nephews showed me that. You just take the phone and you put it on there and look at that little cue, and it'll tell you all about it. And it'll tell you where you can get it at. So I'm looking at these used lawnmowers, and I get the little clip, and the lawnmower is like maybe $300 and something, brand new, in the box. I could get the same lawnmower for about $350. Now let me show you what happens. I've known this guy for some time. Remember I told you our office building was across, and the only reason why I principally did business with him is because I said, hey, you know what? If he's going to open up in that community and serve people, then we're going to do some business with him. He knows me and I know him. When I pulled up to look at those lawnmowers, he never came out of the building. What he actually did was send his wife out. So I asked her, I said, hey, look, I want to get one or two of these used lawnmowers, but I'm not about to pay no $300 for a used lawnmower. So she said, no, 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 $280 and $310. And I said, no, 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 no. I don't pay no black tax for nothing. I buy wholesale, not retail. And she understood what I said because she said, no, 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 no. We sell retail, not wholesale. Now, why is that important? You see, 10 years ago, the entrepreneur would have came out himself because he knew when I was looking at those lawnmowers that I was not going to pay retail. I was not going to pay that black tax. I was not going to pay that 100% markup charge. And that's what Malcolm was trying to get to us in 1964. Let's just hear some of what Malcolm was saying. And you got to understand it now. It's about a 5-minute clip. We're going to just do 5 minutes, then we'll come back and do another part of it. But you got to understand what Malcolm was trying to get across. And he was telling us that we have to control the economy of our community. We have to start businesses in our community. If you want your kids to stop being the last hire and the first fire, then it's your responsibility to invest in your community. You have to stop sitting around waiting for other people to invest their money in your community. Because when they do invest their money in your community, they're going to charge that black tax and they're going to take the money out of your community. So instead of it circulating 31 days, it's going to circulate about 6 hours. So Malcolm saw that in 1964. And so Malcolm's black nationalism is the same thing that Dr. King said in 67 and 11 months before he died. We're going to look at that too. But I want you to see what Malcolm had to say, and I want you to see how we bought into Nixon's Southern strategy, not even being aware that it was a strategy to take you off the street, to grant you permission to participate in capitalism, but not the power that's required to participate in capitalism. Mike, let's look at a few minutes of that clip, Malcolm, Ballot on the Buddy, which is a classic, and I recommend this to you. I'm only going to be able to play you an excerpt because we only have an hour show. But I recommend to you that you take some time and you listen to Malcolm's X, The Ballot on the Budget, 60 years ago, and ask yourself this question. If we wouldn't have bought into Nixon's Southern strategy, which didn't include us, it was just a slogan, black capitalism, and bought into Malcolm's nationalism, where would you be today? Mike, let's run that clip right quick.
Is black nationalism. You and I, as I say, if we bring up religion, we'll have differences, we'll have arguments, we'll never be able to get together. But if we keep our religion at home, keep our religion in the closet, keep our religion between ourselves and our God, but when we come out here, we have a fight that's common to all of us against the enemy who is common to all of us. The political philosophy of black nationalism only means that the black man should control the politics and the politicians in his own community. The time when white people can come in our community and get us to vote for them so that they can be our political leaders and tell us what to do and what not to do is long gone. By the same token, the time when that same white man, knowing that your eyes are too far open, can send another Negro into the community, get you and me to support him so he can use him to lead us astray, those days are long gone. The political philosophy of black nationalism only means that if you and I are going to live in a black community, and that's where we're going to live, because as soon as you move into one of their into their community. It's mixed for a period of time, but they are gone, and you're right there all by yourself. We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce. We must know what part politics play in our lives. And until we become politically mature, we will always be misled, led astray, or deceived or maneuvered into supporting someone politically who doesn't have the good of our community at heart. So the political philosophy of black nationalism only means that we will have to carry on a political program of re-education to open our people's eyes, make us become more politically conscious, politically mature. And then we will, whenever we get ready to cast our ballot, that ballot will be cast for a man of the community who has the good of the community at heart. And the economic philosophy of black nationalism only means that we should own and operate and control the economy of our community. You would never find, you can't open up a black store in a white community. White man won't even patronize you. And he's not wrong. He got sense enough to look out for himself. And it's you who don't have sense enough to look out for yourself. The white man is too intelligent to let someone else come and gain control of the economy of his community. But you will let anybody come in and control the economy of your community. Control the housing, control the education, control the jobs, control the businesses under the pretext that you want to integrate. No, you're out of your mind. The economic philosophy of black nationalism only means that we have to become involved in a program of re-education to educate our people into the importance of knowing that when you spend your dollar out of the community in which you live, the community in which you spend your money becomes richer and richer. The community out of which you take your money becomes poorer and poorer. And because these Negroes who have been misled, misguided, are breaking their necks to take their money and spend it with the man. The man is becoming richer and richer, and you're becoming poorer and poorer. And then what happens? The community in which you live becomes a slum. It becomes a ghetto. The conditions become run down. And then you have the audacity to complain about poor housing in a run-down community. Why, you run it down yourself when you take your dollar out. And you and I are in a double trap, because not only do we lose by taking our money someplace else and spending it, when we try and spend it in our own community, we're trapped because we haven't had sense enough to set up stores and control the businesses of our community. The man who's controlling the stores in our community is a man who doesn't look like we do. He's a man who doesn't even live in the community. So you and I, even when we try and spend our money in the block where we live or the area where we live, we're spending it with a man who, when the sun goes down, takes that basket full of money in another part of the town.
See Malcolm's black nationalism? It incorporates controlling the economy of your community, using your own dollars to influence businesses in your community, not some slogan, not some SBA 8A program or some SBA loan program. See, that's being bamboozled. Malcolm laid out a strategic strategy that I believe, and I say I believe, that if we would have incorporated that strategy, you would see a different community today than what you see. We bought into the slogan of black capitalism. That's something that Nixon and his people came up with, and it was a decoy to take you off the street, to destroy the activism, to break the morale, and to get the Southern votes. Let me show you what Nixon said. Let's look at those two clips on Richard Nixon. This is the person who's supposed to be your savior. But I want you to see how he thought and what he said about the programs that he actually implemented. And then I'm going to show you something that came in 1969, when all this is going on. Let's run that clip on former President Richard Nixon, Mike.
Africans just can't run things. Now, that's a very, very fundamental point in the international scene. I love them. They're so kind and so nice. And they're children.
Yeah.
Children.
Yeah.
Huh? You know?
And they always want something like children.
Oh, God, yes, they want. Well, what can you do? I know, but what I meant is it's so childlike, the childlike faith and the this and that. And, of course, a lot of them are crooks, but we have crooks, too. There are many other areas, as you've well pointed out, where they can beat the hell out of us. Now, and they should be proud of those. Athletics isn't a bad achievement. And you look at the World Series, for God's sakes, and what would either of these teams done without, what would Pittsburgh be without hell of a lot of blacks, huh? Sure. And music, the dance, now, and these things, are they to be therefore just pissed upon? Hell no. They're important. But
real. These are the archives they don't want you to hear and see. Now, here's the man who designed the strategy of black capitalism. Designed it. And at that time, our leadership bought into it. Yes. You remember Malcolm said they're going to send people into the community that don't look like you, that don't act like you, that don't live with you, that can convince you to buy into this strategy? That's what happened. That is exactly what happened. And I want you to get a taste of it so you can see and get an appreciation for where we are and what caused us to get there. And it's so important for us to understand that. See, because you can't come up with a cure until you diagnose the problem. Remember that. You can't come up with a cure until you diagnose the problem. And if you don't understand the grassroots and the causes, how are you going to come up with a cure? You're not going to be able to come up with a cure for COVID-19 until you understand the genesis of the germ that's causing it. And that's the key. And what Malcolm was laying out for us, he told us, he was telling us that we need to become more politically mature. He was telling us that we need to be re-educated. He's telling us that we need to control the economy of our community. He's telling you and I that you have to take control of what's going on in your community and stop looking for other people to do it for you. And here we are 60 years later, and we're still looking for other people to do for us what God has given us the capacity to do for ourselves. And we fall for the okie dokie. We fall for the decoy. And that's why former President Nixon can say they're like little children. They're generous. They have beautiful smiles. They're outgoing. But they lack the capacity to fully understand black capitalism. So it's going to be a myth. It's going to be a slogan that I'm going to use. And Nixon won with that slogan because Nixon knew he had to do something to reverse the 80% of blacks who voted for John Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. Remember, before that period, majority of blacks voted Republican. It wasn't until the Kennedys got Martin Luther King out of jail and Daddy Kennedy got all the ministers to go to their congregations and influenced them to vote for John F. Kennedy. Made a tremendous difference in that election and made a tremendous difference in Johnson's landslide. And what did Johnson do? He took care of everybody else's business, and then he decides to do something for you. You see, you got to, in politics, in the first year and a half, almost 80% of what you're going to get done, you're going to get done. So when they start working on you after 2 years, 2.5 years, it ain't getting done. And that's why it's so important. And so now you can see, now I want to bring you a little forward, and I want you to see what Time magazine said about Nixon's black capitalism. And I want you to understand it. And we can move forward now. And so look what Time magazine said in 1969. Look what Time magazine says. And it's profound. and it's epic. And Mike, you have it. Put it up there on the screen. Black Capitalism, a disappointing start. And I want people to be able to see it. And look what they say. It says a catchy, promising phrase. That's what they say. A black capitalism quote is a catchy phrase. It says because the Nixon administration promised during the election campaign that his administration would set up loans and other aid for Negroes to start their own business. As Nixon put it, the government should act decisively to help Negroes gain their fair piece of the action. The rather general idea that Negroes should lift themselves up through business ownership, as many other ethnic groups have done in the United States, inspired hope and some votes among people of all races. To the extent that programs of black capitalism are successful, said Nixon, ghettos will gradually disappear. Today, many aspiring entrepreneurs in the ghetto, black capitalism sound just like more smooth honky-tonk. From all sides, the administration is under increasing criticism for failing to live up to the campaign promises and provide forceful leadership. There are few capitalists among the U.S. 22 million blacks. They only own 3% of the nation's business, and 3% is less than 1% of U.S.-based receipts. That's a year later. Time magazine just chastising President Richard Nixon for a slogan with no substance. A slogan with no substance. Black capitalism was a slogan with no substance. No change. No development. All the stuff that President Nixon said he was going to do in those first 2 years, none of it happened. So the question for you and me, why did we buy the okie dokie? Why do we fall for false promises? Malcolm laid it out in '64. He said they were going to send people in your community who don't look like you, who don't act like you, who don't think like you, to persuade you to buy into their program. And we bought into Nixon's black capitalism, and we have to ask ourselves today, what foolishness are you buying into? Why are you not looking at yourself? Why is it that I could not find one lawnmower repair shop in the African American community that repairs lawnmowers and sell used lawnmowers? Ask yourself that question. And ask yourself that question, and then you answer that question. You see, I'm not being critical of the Vietnamese that I've known for 20 years, because I know when he started out, he could barely pay the light bill. You know how I know that? Because we went over there and bought some things from him because his lights were out 15 years ago, just to make sure he could stay in the community. So he took his pennies, he took his dollars, and he invested in the community. And like Malcolm said, I don't have a problem with him taking his money and going over there to the North Shore. I don't have a problem with it. The fundamental problem I have is that we sit back and we never say to ourselves, I'm going to invest my money in a barbershop. You know, I was talking to my barber, and I've known him for about 40 years. And he was one of the people who inspired me to go into business. And he's comfortable with me telling you his name, Jay Weber. He had a barbershop in the heart of the community. And on any given Saturday, between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., you had to get a number. They had almost 400 people lining up to come to that barbershop. That's the difference when you invest in your own community. You know what? That barbershop is still in the community. Mr. Weber still lives in the community. And he's gone from being owning a barber business in the community to owning a significant construction company in the community. And he's building homes in one of the most prestigious communities in the New Orleans metropolitan area. And he's doing commercial construction all over the state. That's what we have to do. That's what makes the difference. And until you start investing in your own community, investing in your own resources, you're going to end up being right where you are and right where you were in 1969. Now, when we come back, I'm going to show you something that they don't want you to see. And we're going to look at this black cow and black capitalism, and we're going to see the growth and maturity of someone that this video, they don't like you to see it and they don't talk about it. But I'm going to show it to you today. And I encourage you to look at the entire video. And I want you to see what this person is saying. And I want you to understand what they're saying because it's so important. We'll be right back on Hard Talk. Talk what you know.
The New Orleans Talk Network, now on your mobile device, on your computer, in your ear, and interactive. It's new, it's innovative, and it's on your mobile device. Android, iPhone, iPad, and on your computer. Take us wherever you go. Because we're interactive. 504-341-TALK. That's 504-341-8255.
Here at Jones Insurance, your full-service agency, let us take care of all your insurance needs. We provide homeowners insurance, flood, rental, commercial, auto, and life insurance. Don't let the unexpected tragedy destroy your family's future. Here at Jones Insurance, 7603 West Bank Expressway, Monroe, Louisiana, 772. Contact Lois at 504-348-1492.
It's your girl, Spice Divas, the marketing diva, the host of Red Lip Talk podcast. Check me out every Monday at 1 p.m. on New Orleans Talk Network. Where do I begin? We have so many amazing guests, from politicians, gospel artists, barbers, beauticians, entrepreneurs, and so much more. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, definitely tune in so you can see what we're doing every Monday at 1 p.m. on New Orleans Talk Network. Mwah!
What you know, Hard Talk edition right here in New Orleans Talk Network studios, where we bring you the facts as we see them from the man on the street. And these are issues that people bring to me. I want to just show you something right quick, how persuasive President Nixon was. Now, let me just share something with you. In my studies in college and just studying, Richard Nixon is probably one of the greatest presidents we ever had. He had a dark side, but he's probably one of the greatest presidents we ever had, but he had a dark side. And he was a political genius. And he came up with this Southern strategy that still works today, that still dominates today almost 60 years later. Watch this little commercial that they had on the black capitalism, and it's slick, and you would buy it if you didn't understand what Malcolm was describing as black nationalism, the power to do, not just to permission. Let's look at this Richard Nixon clip right quick.
The face of the ghetto is the face of despair. It is a face whose eyes see only hopelessness. If we hope to light this face, we must rescue the ghetto from its despair. But not with more promises, not with the old solution, the handout. We must offer a new solution, the hand up. With your help, I will begin a new program to get private enterprise into the ghetto and the ghetto into private enterprise. I call it black capitalism. More black ownership of business and land and homes can be the multiplier of pride that will end our racial strife. The black man's pride is the white man's hope.
That's a catchy commercial, and you would buy into it. And so I just want you to see, and it's so funny how Malcolm laid that out. He said, "Hey, they're gonna bamboozle you, gonna lead you astray, they're gonna send people to the community." I mean, just imagine that. Nobody wants to live in a ghetto. Everybody wants to have a home, opportunity to have a business, to have employees, to live the American dream. So Nixon incorporated all of that into his Southern strategy, take you off the street, law and order, get the Dixiecrats to go along with him, and undermined the entire economic platform that the leaders at that time were moving toward. Because as long as you were dealing with civil rights, you were okay. But the minute you started to deal with economic rights, that's when you became a problem. Now, I want you to see something. I want you to see the speech that they don't want you to see, the message that they don't want you to see. I want you to see something, and we're going to do, Mike, run that Martin Luther King clip. This is the clip they don't want you to see. This is the one they don't want you to see. And this is about 11 months. This is about 11 months before Dr. King is assassinated. But I want you to see what he says here, and I want you to see that he's saying some of the same, he's saying it in a different way. And two people can say the same thing and say it in a different way. Here's about 5 years after Malcolm laid out his plan. I want you to see where Dr. King is, and I want you to see what they don't like you to see. Mike, play that clip right quick.
Get rid of one without getting rid of the other.
When you stood on the Lincoln Memorial that day in August, '63, and you said, "I had a dream," did that dream envision that you could see a war in Asia preventing the federal government doing for the Negroes, preventing the society doing for the Negroes that which you think had to be done?
No, I didn't envision that then. I must confess that that period was a great period of hope for me. And I'm sure for many others all across the nation, many of the Negroes who had about lost hope, saw a solid decade of progress in the South. And in 1954, which was, 64, 1963, 9 years after the Supreme Court's decision to be in the March on Washington, meant a great deal. It was a high moment, a great watershed moment. But I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation.
Dr. King, even if there had not been a war in Asia, would you still not have had this nightmare insofar as the Negro movement for equality then touched on two things that the white community holds sacred, their children and their property?
Oh, I have no doubt that we would have encountered great difficulties, great problems of resistance if the war had not been in existence. So that I'm not going to say that all of our problems would be solved if the war in Vietnam is ended. But I do say that the war makes it infinitely more difficult to deal with these problems. When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. I noticed the other day, some weeks ago, a Negro was shot down in Chicago, and it was a clear case of police brutality. That was on page 30 of the paper, but on page 1 at the top was 780 Viet Cong killed. That is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction, and it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence. And it strengthened the military-industrial complex of our country, and it's made our job much more difficult, because I think we can go along with some programs, if we didn't have this war on our hands, that would cause people to adjust to new developments, just as they did in the South. They said they'd never ride the bus with us. Blood would flow in the streets. They wouldn't go to school and all of these things. But when people came to see that they had to do it because the law insisted, they finally adjusted. And I think white people all over this country will adjust once the nation makes it clear that in schools, in housing, we've got to learn to live together as brothers. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. Didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something.
Hey, NBC News viewers. That's the message they don't want you to see. Dr. King said the dream has almost become a nightmare. And he's dealing with that black cow. He's dealing with economics. He's dealing with the difficulty of getting people to embrace the reality that there's certain things that has to be done in order to give a person a leg up or give them boots to pull themselves up by. And so you have seen a complete change where the leaders are now dealing with the economy. King he's parrying what Malcolm is saying, and he's saying the same thing. You know, he's saying, hey, look, Malcolm said you can't put a knife 9 inches in my back and pull it out 3 inches and call it progress. When they started trying to deal with the economics, they say, hey, this is progress. They said, just take your people off the street. turn everything back and buy into black capitalism, not black nationalism. That means you own the stores in your community. That means you're investing in the stores in your community. As Malcolm said in that message, the Ballot and the Bullet, Walmart didn't come Walmart overnight. He said Woolworth or Woolco at that time. GMAC didn't become GMAC overnight. It was a dime, nickel and dime shop. And what Malcolm was saying is that take your own dollars, take your own ingenuity, take your own commitment, and start stores and start automobile plants and do these things in your own community. And he's saying once you take control of the economy of your community, once you take control of the economy of your community, that's not black capitalism, that's black nationalism that has a component of black capitalism in it. And he was saying to you and I, and most of the civil rights leaders between 64 and 69 had come to that point. It was a evolution of their philosophy. And what happens? In that evolution of their philosophy, Nixon comes up with this concept of black capitalism. And it's just a slogan. It's a slogan to represent something that could not happen, as Dr. King said, without the investments going into it. And he's so clear, and that's a part of Dr. King's message that nobody quotes, that nobody leads with. All you hear, judge me by the contents of my character, not the color of my skin. Yes, Dr. King did say that. But he also said after that this has become a nightmare. Because we are boiled down in the paralysis of analysis, we're constantly trying to analyze where we're at. And Malcolm and King was saying to us that you have to take over the economy of your community. And you have to invest in your community. And if you're waiting around for other people to do it, it's not going to happen. And Dr. King was prophetic in this. And he says a couple other things in 69. I know we might run a little over, but we got to see this, Mike. Mike, go to those other two clips from Dr. King. I just want you to see that they want you to think that Dr. King only dealt with civil rights. No, Dr. King evolved to dealing with economic rights, economic opportunity. Dr. King evolved with dealing with parity, not equality, but parity. Nixon's black capitalism was a slogan. Malcolm's black nationalism and Dr. King and most of the other civil rights leaders evolved to where Malcolm was. And they started to address the economic issue, how it impacts us, short term and long term. And Dr. King had a message, and this one they don't want you to see either, because it deals with economics. It deals with the myth of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It deals with the myth that just time, let time cure everything. You know, Dr. King said time don't cure everything. He said time can be destructive or time can be constructive. And so when people start to tell us these different things about just let time cure it. No, action cures it. Commitment cures it. Discipline cures it. A commitment to excellence cures it. Integrity cures it. Being the most productive cures it. Being the most innovative cures it. Being the most creative cures it. And that's what we need to start focusing on. And stop looking for other people to help you out. Because what they're going to say is that, hey, pull your stuff up by your own bootstraps. Well, hell, if you don't have no boots, how are you going to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps? But we can slow down for a minute. How are you going to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps? And Dr. King dealt with that in one of his last speeches. I mean, it was pronounced. It's called The Other America. The Other America. You don't hear anything about that speech. at all. They rarely play it. People rarely talk about it. They rarely dissect it. And I encourage you to go and listen to it, to dive into it. Malcolm's The Ballot and the Budget, Dr. King's The Other America, they are profound. And they're going to give you a different perspective of why we're in the situation we're in. Because we bought into slogan. We bought into people coming in our community telling us all you got to do is do A, B, and C, and they never allow for the resources for you to do it. There was no dealing with redlining. There was no dealing with predatory credit lending. There was no dealing with opportunities in housing. None of these things were dealt with. What only happened was focusing on simply pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps and what could be. Mike, you found those clips? Let's play them. And I think this is critically important because he's telling you that, hey, you have to understand the problem to lift yourself up from it. Let's play those clips, Mike.
There are many things that we must do for ourselves and that only we can do for ourselves. Certainly we must develop within a sense of dignity and self-respect that nobody else can give us, a sense of manhood, a sense of personhood, a sense of not being ashamed of our heritage, not being ashamed of our color. It was wrong and tragic that the Negro ever allowed himself to be ashamed of the fact that he was black, or ashamed of the fact that his home, ancestral home, was Africa. And so there's a great deal that the Negro can do to develop self-respect. There's a great deal that the Negro must do and can do to amass political and economic power within his own community and by using his own resources. And so we must do certain things for ourselves, but this must not negate the fact and cause the nation to overlook the fact that the Negro cannot solve the problem himself. A man was on the plane with me some weeks ago, and he came and talked with me, and he said, the problem, Dr. King, that I see with what you all are doing is that every time I see you and other Negroes, you are protesting, and you aren't doing anything for yourselves. And he went on to tell me that he was very poor at one time, and he was able to make it by doing something for himself. Why don't you teach your people, he said, to lift themselves by their own bootstraps? And then he went on to say other groups face disadvantages, the Irish, the Italians, and he went down the line. And I said to him that it does not help the Negro, it only deepens his frustration for unfeeling and sensitive people to say to him that other ethnic groups who migrated or were immigrants to this country just 100 years ago or so have gotten beyond him, and he came here some 344 years ago. And I went on to remind him that the Negro came to this country involuntarily in chains, while others came voluntarily. I went on to remind him that no other racial group has been a slave on American soil. I went on to remind him that the other problem that we have faced over the years is that the society placed a stigma on the color of the Negro, on the color of his skin, because he was black. Doors were closed to him that were not closed to other groups. And I'm to say to people that you ought to lift yourself by your own bootstraps, but it is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. The fact is that millions...
And that's key. What Dr. King is illustrating two things. One, you're responsible for changing your situation. He acknowledged that you have to be committed to making a difference. You have to know that only you can make the difference in your life. But he also says, don't neglect the fact that a whole set of circumstances that you had no control over, laws, Jim Crow, black codes, all of these things segregated housing, all these things impact you. And for someone to come and tell you that it doesn't matter, that these things don't matter, is foolishness, because they do matter. And so, he's solving the equation for both sides. He's saying, of course, you have to be innovative, you have to be productive, you have to be creative, you have to create value, but at the same time, no one can tell you that everything is your fault, that everything lies with you. Because there are advantages that were given to other groups that came to this country that wasn't given to you. So the concept of pull yourself up by your own bootstrap is disingenuous. And if anyone approaches you with that, you can feel comfortable with telling them, yes, I'm going to be innovative, I'm going to be creative, I'm going to be productive, I'm going to deal with integrity, but at the same time, I'm not going to forget that there are advantages that you have that I didn't have. And he says it's society's responsibility to address those differences, those inequities. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. And I want you to see something else Dr. King said, and we're going to be closing with this, that I think is very important. He says, time is neutral. And if anyone tells you just give it time, time can be constructive or destructive. And when someone tells you to give it time, you let them know that time is not necessarily your friend. And what you need is creative engagement. And I want you to see that clip, and it's very important. And I encourage you to go back and listen to these messages, the Ballot or the Bullet by Malcolm X, because Malcolm lays out a plan. And then all the other civil rights leaders come and buy into that plan. They say it a different way, but it illustrates the very same thing. Mike, play that last clip.
All over our nation, legislation can't solve the problem. It can't do anything in this area. And those who project this argument contend that you've got to change the heart and that you can't change the heart through legislation. Now, I would be the first one to say that there is real need for a lot of heart changing in our country. And I believe in changing the heart. I preach about it. I believe in the need for conversion in many instances and regeneration, to use theological terms. And I would be the first to say that if the race problem in America is to be solved, the white person must treat the Negro right, not merely because the law says it, but because it's natural, because it's right, and because the Negro is his brother. And so I realize that if we are to have a truly integrated society, men and women will have to rise to the majestic heights of being obedient to the unenforceable. But after saying this, let me say another thing which gives the other side, and that is that although it may be true that morality cannot be legislated, behavior can be regulated. Even though it may be true that the law cannot change the heart, it can restrain the heartless. Even though...
I encourage you to go back and watch that, because Dr. King illustrates two important things. Changing the heart matters, but legislation also matters also. And that's the growth and maturity that you see in him, where it's not either or, it's both. Touching the heart and proper legislation by government makes a difference, because it was the legislation by government that helped create the situation. So legislation by government can impact behavior. Can't change the heart, but it can impact behavior. And so when you get an opportunity, it's very important you go back and look at these clips, and it'll give you a perspective as to why things are the way they are and what we need to do to change them. Slogans don't make it. That's not going to change anything. We got to stop chasing slogans. We got to stop taking symbolic victories. We got to buy into becoming innovative, creative, and productive, and demanding that that the law reflects the behavior changes that need to happen. Always remember, stay strong, stay focused, and always remember, you get what you negotiate, you eat what you kill, and you're swimming in shark-infested waters. So you need to learn how to swim with the sharks without being eaten. See you next time on Talk What You Know, Hard Talk Edition.
You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised.
During times of family stress, if you need a church to hold your funeral services or a hall to hold your repast, you can contact us at Bethesda Community Event Center at 504-348-01